I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to another episode of Ohio Politics Explained. We are back from a short summer recess, hope you didn't miss us too much, and have a lot to catch up on. We'll first dive into the disturbing case unfolding in Vinton County, an ethics complaint against JobsOhio, a new law that will change traffic stops, and how Ohio is responding to Supreme Court decisions on immigration. Joining me today is Laura Bischoff.
Hello, hello.
Before we jump in, my periodic plug. If you enjoy OPE and find it helpful, please consider rating or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Okay, let's start with Vinton County. A quick warning, this deals with allegations of child abuse that listeners may find upsetting. In late June, authorities found 16 kids in, quote, deplorable conditions in a Hamden home. They arrested and charged 4 adults, 2 of whom are believed to be the children's parents. Attorney General Andy Wilson, who is brand new to his job, said it's the worst case he's ever seen. How is the state responding to this? It's local, but it has a lot of people's attention.
Absolutely. Well, on Monday, the State Controlling Board is expected to approve a $1 million emergency appropriation for Vinton County's foster care system to help care for these 16 kids. They've all been removed from the home and placed into foster care. I don't know, it's not clear, it's not disclosed where they are placed, but Vinton County only has about 45 kids in foster care in a given year, and so adding 16 to the mix all at once is a big heavy lift for them. So the state has been helping with the placement of the kids who are expected to have some really enormous medical, physical, and mental health challenges to address. And so I think the $1 million really might end up being kind of a down payment on what's to come. And then additionally, the Attorney General's Bureau of Criminal Investigation is helping with the investigation. They were on site the day that the house was searched. And then also the AG's office is going to assist Vinton County Prosecutor Archer with the prosecution of the case.
And the Ohio Department of Children and Youth, if I remember correctly, is looking into whether there were any child welfare reports lodged against this family in the past. And I don't think we have an answer to that yet, correct? Or at least no one has said.
Right. They, in any kind of like really serious case or a child fatality, the state will do a review of how the welfare system responded or failed to respond. This is a family that moved around to multiple counties over a period of years. And there's a lot of questions about, how can you have 16 kids and kind of have them completely off the grid or off the books? They do have birth certificates. And it's unclear whether or not any of them were ever enrolled in school, if they were homeschooled, if they weren't schooled at all. So there's a lot of areas in which, you got to ask, how could they have been so out of sight, such a large group of children in one family?
Right. And you mentioned BCI was on site right away, but they were there on a completely different case, different warrant. And it sounds like they didn't even know that there were children in the home until they unfortunately discovered the really bad conditions that these kids were in.
Right. They said that they were there on an unrelated kind of parallel investigation. They've not disclosed the nature of that investigation. The search warrants have been sealed, although our company is fighting to get those open. Yeah, so there's a lot of unanswered questions about the investigation, about the family, and about how the government did or did not respond to what was happening there.
Yeah, definitely a lot to come on this. Our next topic is JobsOhio. John Kulwitz, the Democrat running for Attorney General, filed an ethics complaint against JobsOhio board chair Josh Rubin. As a reminder, JobsOhio is the state's private economic development agency that's been under some scrutiny lately because of transparency concerns. Walk us through the complaint against Rubin.
So Kulwitz filed this with the Ohio Inspector General, Randy Meyer's office. That office has very limited authority to investigate JobsOhio employees. I don't know if being the chair of the board qualifies you as an employee or not. That's, to be determined. But Rubin's firm, CJR Group, lobbies for AEP. AEP has expressed interest in starting, in one of their earnings calls, they expressed some interest in doing what's called small modular reactors. These are like little mini nuclear power plants that a lot of people think is sort of the future of providing on-site power, particularly for big projects like data centers. And JobsOhio created a $100 million fund in August of last year to help prepare for companies that want to do these SMRs, also for some natural gas infrastructure and for some workforce training. And Kuwitz alleges that, AEP would benefit from this fund and that Rubin had a conflict because he lobbied, his company lobbies for AEP. AEP says, look, we haven't received any money out of this. And currently, under current law, the AEP and the other big utilities are prohibited from owning generation assets. That was a change in state law that was made almost 30 years ago, back in 1999. There is a bill pending in the Ohio House that would allow the big utilities to own these SMRs to kind of unravel a little bit of that 1999 utility law. But we're still a long ways from seeing that, become reality.
Yeah, this is a really interesting issue. And I think you mentioned the data centers. I think this is a hotter button topic than normal, in part because these SMRs could power the data centers, but also because Ohio has a bit of a complicated history with utilities and energy.
Yes. See House Bill 6.
Have Rubin or JobsOhio said anything about this? You mentioned AEP's response.
I called Rubin's to try to get some sort of comment, and I got a response from JobsOhio that said there's no conflict here. Josh Rubin did participate in the vote. It was a unanimous vote to set up this $100 million initiative. And there's no conflict because AEP is not the only company that may or may not benefit from this. And then they also point out that, these SMRs are really expensive. And $100 million is a tiny little drop on these kinds of projects.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Moving on to that new traffic law I mentioned, Governor Mike DeWine signed a bill to penalize people who don't identify themselves to police if they're pulled over for a traffic violation. That means drivers and passengers would have to provide their name, birthday, or address if asked. Where did this idea come from?
I imagine from the police departments across Ohio. This is sort of an issue that's long been festering, the idea that you could get pulled over for a potential traffic violation and then you could just not respond about who you are. It is a little odd, although there's, civil liberty people who say that you shouldn't have, if you didn't do anything wrong, you shouldn't have to produce ID for the police. We're not a police state. And so it's kind of an interesting issue.
Yeah. Republicans who spoke in favor of this in the state house said that this is really a safety issue for police. They said there are videos on social media and stuff out there of people refusing to identify themselves. And so they wanted to ramp up the consequences for people who don't. But as you said, there are some folks who were concerned about this, think it goes too far. The Office of the Public Defender said that these penalties are just really disproportionate to the violation that the person would be accused of.
I think it's interesting that the passenger has to provide information as well.
Yeah, that is, I'm not sure the reasoning behind that, but our final topic is the U.S. Supreme Court. The court issued two big rulings on immigration. One upheld birthright citizenship for children born in the United States, and another allows the Trump administration to end legal protections for Haitians. The latter is a big blow to the Haitian community in Springfield, who have now lost their work authorization and can't renew their driver's licenses. And we really don't know what comes next, do we?
Well, there was some indication that, employers were told, don't employ the people whose TPS, temporary protective status, had ended. And so I think there's 10,000 Haitian immigrants in the city of Springfield. They are working jobs and living in the community, and that's going to be very, very disruptive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concern at this point about if or when there's going to be any kind of immigration enforcement in Springfield. There were legal experts and immigration advocates saying shortly after the decision that there may be other options for people in Springfield like asylum, but by and large, a lot of the folks who were on TPS were on TPS because they didn't really have any other legal avenues.
Also, the prospect of just like going back to Haiti is really scary. There's, the U.S. Department of State says that airlines shouldn't land their planes there because gangs will shoot at the planes.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. And yeah, I think there are Haitians in Springfield that still have friends and family in Haiti. But to your point, it's really unstable. That's been a big criticism from Governor Mike DeWine. He has supported TPS. He has criticized the Trump administration for trying to end it. And one of his chief arguments is because Haiti is still very unstable. Now, the birthright citizenship ruling had a less direct effect on Ohio. It was still a big win for immigration advocates, but not everyone here is happy about it. Senator Bernie Moreno is pushing for legislation that would limit birthright citizenship to children born to U.S. citizens and green card holders, which is basically what Trump tried to do in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know if that bill's going to have legs or not, to be determined. It's interesting because, Bernie Moreno himself is an immigrant.
Right. And he has been very outspoken on undocumented immigration because of that. But yeah, to your point, I think there's a big legal fight ahead on the birthright citizenship piece of this that is above my pay grade. And one more thing before you go. Ohio has launched a new ad campaign urging people to get their unclaimed funds before the state takes control of them. If you want to check for missing money, you can visit unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov.